So greetings, friends. I'm so glad you returned. So again, I'm Mary Ellen Jackson, Director of Religious Education, and I'm here to speak with Collette Ball about the Bible person of her choice, but you'll have to wait to find out. Because first, I'm going to show you another Bible. We're showing you a different Bible each session. This is called the Catholic Ignatian Bible, and it's a wonderful Bible with lots of notes, and pages of explanations. It's only the New Testament, but it's a fabulous Bible, and that might be the Bible for you. So, thank you for coming, Collette.
You're welcome. I'm glad to be here.
Can you tell us a little bit about what you do maybe in the parish?
Okay, I am a lector, and I've been lecturing now for 3.5 years, and I enjoy it very much. I enjoy proclaiming the word of Jesus Christ. I'm also a co-chair for the Sankofa Catholic Ministries, and that ministry has been in place now for about 5 years.
Yes.
And we have lots of activities, and we enjoy doing programs that create awareness for our parish family.
Which is wonderful, So whom did you choose?
I chose Esther.
Esther?
I chose Esther,
yes. A queen.
Yes, a queen.
So why did you choose her?
Well, I have always admired Esther, and I admire Esther for her beauty, and not only her beauty, but the fact that she's smart.
Right.
She's a woman of faith, courage, and strength.
Yeah, that's beautiful.
And she was able to accomplish something that most people could not have accomplished, especially back in Old Testament days.
Right. And I also loved how, the Lord used her beauty, but she herself didn't rely on her beauty. She relied on the prayer and the fasting and even her uncle.
Exactly, she did. And the interesting thing about Esther was that, she was chosen. She was handpicked to be King Xerxes' queen, and for good reasons.
Right.
She was a woman who was patient, kind, and she loved her people. She loved the Jewish people. No, she didn't rely on her beauty. And I think that's another reason that I also identify with Esther. I'm not saying I'm this gorgeous woman or anything, but I think sometimes people think because you are an attractive or a person of beauty and those sorts of things, those traits, that sometimes you cannot get things accomplished.
True, right.
And we do have a voice. We do want to accomplish certain things regardless of that.
Right.
And that's what Esther was able to do. She's a woman of faith and courage, and she didn't allow that to stand in her way. And
she needed so much courage for what she did.
She did. She absolutely did. And it came about because, after she was queen, her cousin, Mordecai, overheard a conversation where Haman was going to annihilate or destroy the Jews. And Mordecai was devastated, and he didn't know what to do. And anyway, the word got back to Esther that her cousin was acting peculiar, and he was distressed over some matter. And she found out what the matter was. And she wasn't going to do anything at first.
Right.
She said, if I approach the king without permission, then I could risk being killed by the king. And so when Mordecai heard that, you know what he said to her? And I wrote it down. It's in Esther, the 4th chapter. It's about the 12th verse in Esther, where he says, just because you're in this court.
Well, why don't you go ahead and read it? Do you mind just read it?
Yes, I'd love
to read it.
When Esther's words were reported to Mordecai, he sent back this answer: "Do not think that because you are in the king's house, you alone of all the Jews will escape." That's what Mordecai said to Esther. "For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place, but you and your father's family will perish." And when Esther heard this, then she knew she had to act.
Right.
And she acted wisely. She said, Go gather together all the Jews who are in Susa and fast for me. Do not eat or drink for 3 days, night or day. I and my maids will fast as you do. When this is done, I will go to the king, even though it is against the law.
And
if I perish, I perish.
Yep. And just, she relied on the Lord. She relied on the Lord. And she had all of these people pray for her, and she relied on the Lord.
Exactly. That's what she did.
And she was willing to die.
She was willing to die for it. Mm-hmm. But I wonder what triggered that in her mind when she heard that from Mordecai. But I thought it was interesting that she immediately realized who she was.
Right.
And why she had to do what she had to do.
Right. One of the lines, and I should have looked it up, that I love in Esther is when Mordecai says to her, perhaps it is for such a time as this that you are queen.
Yes.
And I think that does happen.
Yes.
Sometimes we might even not realize it at the time, but that was something that only you could have taken care of.
Exactly. And we're here for a reason.
Right.
We're in our positions for a reason. Not because we have all these credentials, background, family, none of those things, but because God placed us in positions where He think we would do the greatest good.
Right. Yes, that's true. That's and of course everything worked out.
Everything did work out, but I have to go back though, and I think we must remember that the main theme of the book of Esther is that it was God's protection of Israel. Right. God finds a way to protect the Jews in a lot of circumstances. And that's the main theme. And there's other underlying themes in the book of Esther, God's sovereignty. And then there's deliverance of the Jews and how they celebrate every year, February 28th, the Feast of Purim. Right. And then, of course, the action that Esther took because she had to take in order to save her people. Mm-hmm. But the one thing that resonates with me today, more than anything else, is that the book of Esther also talks about racial hatred. Right. It talks about that. Right. And the Jews were a minority in the Persian region. And, they were deported from Judah over 100 years ago. Mm-hmm. And they were still in the minority. But they were still disliked very much by all the people. And Haman disliked the Jews as well. Right. And that's why he went on to plot against the Jews.
And also along those lines, Mordecai, if I recall correctly, one of the reasons Haman didn't like him is that he refused to bow to Haman because he only bowed to God. Exactly. And I think we, unfortunately, even in our culture, many people don't live their faith the way they should, so because that's what society wants them to do. Right. Which is a bad thing.
Exactly. And I agree with you 100%. We worship materialism. Right. We worship our wealth, our positions, and those things. And what we learn is that it's God who protects us. Right. God protects us, and all that we have is His. Right. And it belongs to Him.
It belongs to Him. Yes, that's right. That's right.
And Esther has so many, even though the book of Esther doesn't talk about God directly, there are just so many things that happens along the way that we know that it is God. Right. For an example, when God wants His will done, He has 3 ways, and I said this to someone earlier, God has 3 ways that He gets His work done. He does it through natural order, and we know that Esther had natural beauty. Right. And because of her natural beauty and being the queen, she was able to save her people. And God's will and works are done through miracles. Right. The miracles. God breaks into the natural order and responds to the expressed needs of the people. A miracle. Right. And today, even today, when I think about, the COVID-19, we need a miracle now, a miracle drug for that to come into place. And then finally, God's providence. Right. I mean, God's providence will come to be either with us, with our permission or actions or without it.
Right.
And so that's usually the best way you want God to intervene in your lives is through His providence.
Well, something I hadn't thought about until you were talking also is that Queen Esther, because she was taken from her family and made the queen, literally everything she had was not hers. You know, it was the king's.
Yes, exactly.
You know, she didn't bring anything of hers. And we need to have that attitude also, because everything we have is really the Lord's.
It is. It is indeed the Lord's.
Yeah.
And I hope that that the people who are watching out here today or tonight, whenever you get a chance to listen to this video, that you recognize that everything we have, everything we own, belongs to Him.
Right. Yeah, we're stewards. That's the stewards. Yes, we're stewards. So, well, thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me.
You brought out some things I hadn't thought about.
Well, thank you so much. God bless.
So we'll hope to see you next time. And would you please give say a prayer for Collette and for myself and for our parish, and we'll just see you maybe next week. God bless.
Goodbye.
Stay here for